2 words? That's all? Not a pickup line? Not a clever technique you rehearse in the mirror? Just 2 words, used at the right moment, from the right inner place, and something shifts. Her energy changes, her attention deepens, and she starts to see you differently. But here's what I need you to understand before we go any further. These 2 words only work if you actually understand why they work. Because if you try to use them as tricks, they will backfire every single time. Welcome back to Magda K Inspires, the channel where we talk about real human connection, feminine psychology, and what it actually takes to build the kind of presence that draws people toward you. I'm Magda, and today's video is specifically for the men watching, but ladies, stay, because understanding this will completely change how you recognize true masculine presence when you see it. Now, let me start with something I want you to really hear. If you've ever done everything right, you were attentive, you were kind, you showed up, you made effort, and still watch the connection gradually cool off, fade out, or plateau into something that never quite became what you hoped, that was not your fault. The truth is, most men are never taught how attraction actually functions in the female mind. We get given surface advice. Be confident, be funny, be a good listener. And those things aren't wrong, but they are incomplete. Here's what's actually happening beneath the surface. Women evolved with one of the most refined social radars of any species on this planet. A woman's nervous system is wired to detect incredibly subtle signals, micro-expressions that flash across a face in less than half a second. The tiniest fluctuation in vocal tone, a split-second hesitation before a response. These signals are processed before conscious thought even begins. Before she decides how she feels, her body has already registered something. And here is where most men, even well-meaning, good-hearted men, run into trouble. They perform. What I mean by that is they arrive in every conversation with a mental script, a playbook of what to say, how to appear, what image to project. And they are so focused on managing that image that they stop being genuinely present. Her nervous system picks this up, not consciously, she can't always name it, but she feels it, and it registers as a very subtle form of inauthenticity. The scientific term for what she is looking for is emotional congruence. It means your inside and your outside match. What you say is actually what you feel. How you present yourself is genuinely who you are. When that congruence is present, something clicks. And the 2 words I am about to share with you are not about what you say. They are about who you are when you say them. The first word is interesting. Now, before you think this is too simple, stay here, because this word, used correctly, is one of the most quietly powerful things a man can say. Most men, when a woman shares something unexpected or expresses an opinion they don't agree with, do one of 2 things. They agree immediately, even if they don't really agree, because disagreement feels risky, or they redirect the conversation back to themselves. Both of these responses, as harmless as they seem, send the same subconscious signal to her nervous system. This man needs my approval to feel okay. And here is the truth about approval seeking. It does not create attraction. It creates comfort at best and distance at worst. A grounded man responds differently. Picture this. You're having a conversation with a woman you're genuinely interested in. She says something you don't quite agree with. Maybe an opinion about relationships or what she believes makes people successful. Most men scramble. They nod along or they assert their own view too quickly. But the man with real inner security pauses, makes genuine eye contact and says, "That's interesting, tell me more about that," and then he actually listens. Not to formulate his rebuttal, not to be polite, but because he genuinely wants to understand how her mind works. Why is this so powerful? Because it sends 3 messages simultaneously, all below conscious awareness. First, it tells her you are not threatened by her perspective. A man with a strong sense of self doesn't need her to agree with him to feel secure. Second, it shows her that you are fully present. In a world of half-distracted conversation hijacking interactions, a man who is truly there with her stands out in a way she can physically feel. Third, and this is the one most men miss, it makes her feel interesting. Not as flattery, but because you are genuinely engaged with the way her mind works. Here is the neuroscience. When a woman feels genuinely seen and truly heard, her brain releases a cascade of dopamine and oxytocin. These are the chemicals associated with pleasure, bonding, and trust. She doesn't choose this reaction consciously. It happens automatically. And here is the beautiful irony. She begins to associate you with that feeling, not the compliment you paid her, not the restaurant you chose, you, because you are the one who made her feel like the most interesting person in the room without saying a single word of flattery. While almost every other man is trying to appear impressive, the man who chooses to be genuinely interested becomes unforgettable. Practice this starting today. In your next conversation, when someone says something unexpected, resist the impulse to redirect. Pause, look at them and say, "That's interesting," say more, and then watch what happens. Now, I want to share a story before we get to the second word. I had a client I'll call Daniel. He was thoughtful, well-read, successful in his career. Women seemed to like him initially, but inevitably things would stall. Her energy would shift and he couldn't figure out why. What I discovered was this. Daniel was brilliant at asking questions, but the moment a woman pushed back on him or asked something of him that made him uncomfortable, he folded. He said yes when he meant no. He agreed when he didn't. He made himself smaller to make space for her. And what he thought was kindness, she was experiencing as instability, as a man who wasn't quite sure who he was. This is where the second word comes in. The second word is no. Not a harsh no. Not a cold or cruel no. A calm, clear, unhesitating no. Think about the last time you witnessed a man decline something without wavering, without over-explaining, without apologizing 5 times, without softening the word until it meant nothing. For most of you, you're drawing a blank, because this is genuinely rare. When most men feel attracted to a woman, a quiet but powerful fear of loss activates, and they become almost unconsciously yes men. They agree with her opinions even when they don't. They cancel their own plans when she asks. They shift their values slightly to match hers. And I want to be very clear here. I am not describing weakness of character. These are good men who care deeply, but they've been taught, explicitly or implicitly, that accommodating her is how you keep her. And the real psychological truth is the opposite. The female attraction system is wired to respond to a stable sense of identity. When you know who you are, when you have values you actually live by, preferences you actually honor, and boundaries you actually maintain, that stability is felt by a woman. It registers in her nervous system as safety, as trustworthiness, as someone she can actually lean on. When you say no, calmly and clearly, without drama, you are communicating something that most men never manage to communicate. I don't need your approval to feel secure. Psychologists call this non-reactive confidence, and it is one of the most foundational elements of genuine masculine presence. Let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus wasn't conventionally impressive on paper. He wasn't wealthy. He didn't have an athlete's physique, but there was something about the way he moved through the world, a calm certainty, a sense that he knew who he was and didn't feel the need to prove it. A younger colleague once asked him how he seemed to attract such quality relationships with women. And Marcus smiled and said, "I stopped performing and started paying attention." One evening, a woman he'd been dating called him with a last-minute plan. She wanted him to cancel his entire weekend, plans he had made a full month ago for a spontaneous trip she had arranged. And I want you to notice what Marcus did not do. He didn't get defensive. He didn't get cold. He didn't say fine through gritted teeth and then resent her for it. He also didn't fold and cancel everything to keep the peace. He said simply, "I can't this weekend. I've had those plans for a month. Let's find a date next week that works for both of us." She pushed back. She tested him. And Marcus calmly and warmly simply repeated, "I understand, but this weekend doesn't work for me." No lecture, no lengthy justification, no anger, just clarity. And here is what happened next. And this is the part that surprises people. She didn't pull away. She looked at him with something that could only be described as deep respect. Because a man who can hold his ground when saying yes would be easier is a man who means it when he says yes. His commitments mean something. His words carry weight. And this is what women are actually looking for beneath the surface of attraction. Not a man who never says no to her. A man whose yes is so strong and so unconditional that she never doubts it. And that kind of yes only exists in a man who has the courage to also say no. Now let's zoom out, because individually these words are powerful, but together, interesting and no, they create something extraordinary. They create authenticity. And I want to be very precise about what that means, because authenticity has become one of those words that gets used so much it starts to lose meaning. Authenticity is not being unfiltered. It is not performing vulnerability to seem relatable. Authenticity is congruence. Your inner state and your outer expression match. Interesting is the word of a man who is confident enough to be curious. He doesn't need to be the most impressive person in the room. He has such a secure foundation that he can genuinely open up to her perspective without feeling threatened. No is the word of a man who is confident enough to maintain himself. He doesn't dissolve in her presence. He is someone with a center of gravity, and that gravity draws her in. Together, these two words answer the question that every woman is unconsciously asking when she meets a man. Who is this person really? And can I trust that? Most men never answer that question clearly because they are so busy managing how they appear that she never gets to see who they actually are. But the man who can genuinely say, "That's interesting, tell me more," and then just as genuinely say, "I understand, but no," that man has answered the question. She knows who he is, and that is the beginning of real attraction. Not the temporary surface level kind, but the kind that deepens over time. Now I want to leave you with something you can actually do today. Because concepts without application are just interesting ideas that fade in a week. For the word interesting, in your next 3 conversations with anyone, if the other person says something unexpected or something you don't fully agree with, pause. Don't respond immediately. Look at them and say, "That's interesting, tell me more," and then actually listen. Don't plan your rebuttal. Don't think about what you'll say next. Just listen with genuine curiosity and notice how the energy of the conversation changes. For the word no, this week find one small low-stakes situation where you would normally say yes out of obligation or fear of awkwardness and say no instead, calmly, without a lengthy explanation, without an apology. "That doesn't work for me this time." That's it. You don't need to justify it further, because here is what you will discover. Most people, including the women you are interested in, don't want a yes man. They want someone whose yes actually means something. And the only way to give them that is to be someone who is also willing to say no. These aren't tricks. They are practices. They require repetition. They require honesty with yourself about where you have been performing instead of just being. But if you commit to them, what changes isn't just how she responds to you. What changes is how you see yourself. So to bring it all together, 2 words, interesting and no, not manipulation tactics, not performance techniques, 2 expressions of the same inner quality, secure confidence. A man who is genuinely secure doesn't need to perform for her. He can be curious about her without losing himself. He can hold boundaries without cruelty. He can be present, fully and authentically present, in a way that her nervous system immediately recognizes, and that recognition is attraction at its deepest level. I'd love to know which of these 2 words feels like the bigger stretch for you right now. Is it being more genuinely curious, or is it saying no without guilt? Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one. If this gave you a new lens on how attraction really works, hit the like button. It helps this content reach the people who need it most. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. I post new videos every single day. I'll see you in tomorrow's video. Take care of yourself. And remember, the most attractive version of you isn't something you have to create from scratch. It's something you have to uncover.